first enemy and at half health? This is gonna be easy. Well, that doesn't bode well. Hello everyone and welcome. Today I answer the question, can I beat Bloodborne at Blood level 4? So if there's one thing I know about how to do a BL4 run aside from, you know, don't level up, it's to use the Saw Cleaver. Normally I'm more of a Ludwig's Holy Blade enjoyer, but you actually just can't use that at base stats. Anyway, back in the waking world, I take revenge upon my wolf killer and then step out into Yharnam proper. It's good to be back. So like I said, I don't really know what I'm doing. I love this game and I've put hundreds of hours into it. The problem is, it's been thousands of hours since I put hundreds of hours into it. On top of that, I've actually only done the DLC once. So that's gonna be fun. It's not like this game's DLC is considered to be one of, or the hardest base level challenges or anything. I'm sure it's gonna be fine. Jokes aside, how bad could it really be? I mean, it's just like any other playthrough, but with, you know, less health. It's not like adaptability is a thing in this game. One of these days, Dark Souls 2, one of these days. Anyway, making my way around Yharnam, just trying to remember how to actually play this game, I grab a few bloodstone shards and come across this totally normal and inconspicuous looking bridge when suddenly I'm attacked by a... Wait, what? That's right, if you like historically accurate architecture of Victorian era London, well get ready for even more historically accurate planes and tanks in today's sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. You can engage in dynamic combined arms PvP with more than 2,000 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships, and I just gotta say it is a boatload of fun. Every vehicle is incredibly detailed and modeled down to their individual components, offering a highly immersive combat experience, and the best part is you can play it for free right now on PC, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and the previous console generations. Let me tell you, this game is absolutely gorgeous in full 4K resolution, and the sound design is top-notch, offering a truly immersive experience. Personally, one of my favorite things is the dynamic and detailed vehicle damage. Gone are the days of health bars above the enemies. Now, when you engage in combat, you're shown a detailed damage x-ray of the vehicles and crews suffering damage in real time. Click the link in the description below to play War Thunder for free, and when you register using my link, you can get multiple premium vehicles, a premium account, boosters, and so much more. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. So Cleric Beast here, easy early game boss. I mean, if he was on fire or something, then he might be an issue, but I've never struggled with him before. Okay, that damage is kind of pitiful, but that's mostly because I don't have fire paper. I thought about using Molotovs, and they definitely can help out, but honestly, it's not necessary. Like, at all. Wow, since when is the Cleric Beast actually psychic? Oh well, it doesn't really matter because he goes down on the first try. Back in the Hunter's Dream, I buy the Yharnam Hunter's attire. I feel like most armor sets in this game have similar stats. I mean, sure, some are better than others in specific areas, but they're all generally the same and mostly just used for style. With the exception of the starting gear, which is noticeably worse than anything else. Up next is Father Gascoigne, and here's a fun fact about me. I suck at hunter fights in this game. I don't know why. I guess it's because they're all relatively small and extremely agile. Thankfully, it's not like there's any late game mandatory hunter fights. Nope, it's not gonna be a problem at all. However, since this fight is so early, he doesn't exactly have a lot of health, so my visceral attacks do more than, well, nothing, and once Father Gascoigne makes a beast out of himself and gets rid of the pain of being a man, the fight gets easier. His attacks are really telegraphed and pretty easy to parry, so he also goes down on the first try. In the Cathedral Ward, I talked to one of the best NPCs in this game. No idea what his name is, but he's a nice guy willing to help out any locals looking for a safe place. Then I make my way over to Alfred, who gives me some fire paper. This will be one of 3 key consumables I use in this run. It applies fire damage to our weapon, which beasts are generally weak to, and in a game about hunting beasts, you can see why that's kind of useful. For those of you who don't know, you can easily shoot Jura off this tower. There's only like a 1% chance that he won't fall. Oh, okay, plan B. Just keep shooting him and eventually he'll understand the assignment and take care of it himself. Back in my day, there'd be a message here, and we all know what it would say. In fact, how about all of you tell me down in the comments exactly what that message would be, and while you're at it, how about giving this video a like and subscribing? It really helps the channel out. Further down the way, I pick up my first set of Beast Blood pellets. Now let me tell you, if fire paper is the bread of this run, these pellets are the butter. Long story short, you eat one of these things, then attack. A lot. More attack, more damage. The biggest drawback is that they are in limited supply for a while. Oh, and I guess the more beast-like you are, the more damage you take too, but at blood level 4, does that really matter? Anyway, at this point, I could go fight the Blood-Starved Beast, allowing me access to the next area, but I already have 13,000 Blood Echoes, so I actually decided to just buy the Hunter Chief's emblem and progress that way. The only reason I did it this way was so I could make the Saw Cleaver stronger before fighting any more bosses. I grabbed some poison knives that will be surprisingly useful later, grab all the Madman's knowledge I can, then finally make my way over to scenic Hemwick Charnel Lane. There really isn't anything to talk about here. It has a few Twin Bloodstone shards and perhaps the easiest boss in the whole game. I'm sure most of you know this by now, but if you go into this boss with 0 insight, the ads never spawn. I mean, don't get me wrong, even with the ads, the fight's pretty easy, but this is just pitiful. The hardest part now is telling which witch is which witch, but an easy way in which to do that would be to charge attack backstab 1, so the witch to which you did so would become bloody, allowing you to determine, in fact, which witch is which witch. Man, how does Press Continue do that? Big shout out to him, by the way. I'm sure most of you here have heard of him, but he made a few Blood Level 4 guides in the past, and they really helped me remember where a lot of the items are in this game, so this boss is for you, Press. With all my running around, I was able to make my weapon a +5. Originally, I had planned on doing Blood-Starved Beast much later than this, but her defeat unlocked something I really want. So, back in Old Yharnam, I equipped some antidotes, rubbed some spicy paper on my saw, and popped the world's worst tasting Tic Tac, then get to work. Do you remember BSB being an issue? Because I did. Maybe that's some weird Mandela effect, because this time I absolutely destroyed her. Okay, to be fair, it's probably because the memories I have are of my first encounter when I didn't know what I was doing and would keep getting hit trying to dodge away. Now I know the ultimate strategy of walking to the right. A couple times I did quick step, but that was mostly a reaction, and in no time flat, she goes down first try. Now I have access to the Healing Church Workshop, or at least the lower half of it, but that's all I need because at the top of this little tower I can pick up the Radiant Sword Hunter badge. This handy little trinket will allow me to purchase fire paper from the messengers, and since I don't really have a use for blood echoes, that's where half my money's gonna go. I pop into the real Hunter's Workshop, but only for some items like the doll's clothes. As much as I bet it would make my eyes pop for the Yharnam Ball, these clothes are worth several thousand blood echoes, so I'm just gonna sell it. Ah yes, the one true predator of beasts. Low-hanging ceilings. A shield? Go back to Dark Souls, loser. We got guns now. This random hunter drops 4 bolt paper, which I won't be using terribly soon, but as you'll see, it's best to get as much free fire and bolt paper as possible. Next, I talk to Ariana to save her because it's the right thing to do. Well, that and because I need her for the proper ending, but mostly the first thing.
But would you even take a whore's blood?
Yeah, it's not the worst thing I can get from a whore, I guess. Alright, so next up is Vicar Amelia, and there is one other damage modifier I haven't talked about yet. Serrated damage. It is essentially a 20% increase in damage against beast-type enemies. There's also one for kin called Righteous, but kin-type enemies are a lot less common and are usually just part of the late game. Anyway, the Saw Cleaver actually gets this damage bonus on a few attacks, specifically when it's in its default form, but also on the transform attack into that default mode. The same attack actually rapidly fills up the Beast Blood meter. Translation, Beast Blood Pellet plus Fire Paper equals an absolutely eviscerated Amelia. I wasn't expecting her to go down on the first try, but I'll take it. For those of you attempting this at home, now is the time to buy as many items as you can from the shop, particularly any fire or bolt paper, because after touching the skull behind Amelia, it turns to night and the prices jump. With all those beasts and hunters trying to kill me back in the Cathedral Ward, I think I've earned a nice relaxing night in the Forbidden Woods. Unfortunately, and unsurprisingly, the Forbidden Woods also has hunters and beasts trying to kill me. And crows, apparently. I swear, this never happens to me. Before heading to the next boss, I make a little side detour up the world's longest ladder and grab someone else's mail. With a Cainhurst summon, I can magic a horse-drawn carriage to me, which then magics me to some distant castle. I don't plan on doing Martyr Logarius yet, but there are some free bloodstone chunks and other expensive items here, so like a true pirate, I pillage everything I can. Ladies, how's it going? No need to worry, I'm not gonna ghost you. Yeah, I deserve that. Anyway, after that fun little side trip, I have enough materials to make my saw a +7. In theory, I could go to the DLC and make it a +9 or even 10, but let's save that pain train for later. Back in the Forbidden Woods, I meet up with the Jelly Bros. They just vibing by themselves in the corner, and that's not allowed, so I put them down and pick up one of the most important runes for this run. Anti-Clockwise Metamorphosis. This rune will increase my total stamina, which if you've ever played a Soulsborne game, that's literally the main mechanic. Well, next to dying, I guess. There are 3 levels to this rune, but I'm not going to be getting the strongest because it's in the Chalice dungeons and I don't plan on doing those in this run. But anyway, it's now time for the Shadows of Yharnam. So prior to starting this run, there were 5 bosses that I was worried about. 2 that I was completely terrified to do, and 3 that I figured would likely give me an issue. This boss is one of the latter 3. The other 4 are all in the DLC, see if you can guess which ones they are. Anyway, individually the Shadows of Yharnam aren't that hard, but as you can tell by the screen, it's not Shadow of Yharnam. Well, actually it is, but obviously there are 3 of them. It's a good idea to focus one down, that way they aren't all in phase 2 at the same time. I decided to get rid of the ranged one first because I didn't want to worry about being peppered with fireballs while trying to deal with a different one. My first attempt actually didn't go so bad. Until I, dodged right into a sword. Second attempt, I had the same strategy, take care of the ranged one first, then survive. But this time I had a genius idea. Why you saw when half gun. I have actually been leveling up my pistol because, well, what else do I spend my echoes on? So it does decent damage at this point, and once the second shadow falls, the fight is basically over. You can just walk at the third one and swing once, repeat until lightly tenderized. Byrgenwerth as a level always confused me. It's one building, but why are there 2 shortcut doors?
I'm in danger!
Hey there, random student that I was too lazy to look up the name of. You look pretty tense. A nice swim will help you relax. That looks like fun. Maybe I'll join you. That's not how you doggy paddle, silly student. Rom the Vacuous Spider. I've never struggled with this boss, but I do know that some of her attacks can straight up one-shot at base vitality. Thankfully, there is a strat to one-cycle her. Basically, you kill the first wave of spiders, then punch her in the face to build up your beast blood meter. After that, you just go to her side and start attacking. When she begins to teleport away, you need to fully charge an R2, but you have to hit her in her side. If you hit her in her head like I do, she doesn't get staggered and just teleports away. Now, she is unfortunately in phase 3, which means 2 lots of giant spiders, and she can start throwing meteors at us. Fun. Slowly I clear out the ads, but the problem is she has some massive AoE attacks around her, and if I don't dodge fast enough, I just die. But then I remember the advice I gave myself literally 45 seconds ago. Why you saw when have gun. I actually noticed something strange. So normally she turns very slowly to face the player, but here she's turning really fast, not allowing me to get to her side, and it's because she wants to do a melee attack, but I'm too far out of her range. Just kind of a neat little quirk of using a ranged weapon, I guess. Anyway, like they say, play lame win games, and she goes down on the second try. With that, I can now access Yahar Ghul, where stuff gets a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. The only important things here are the upper cathedral key and a few more bloodstone chunks. Hey girl, what that mouth do? Cool, I'm into that. Remember how I said I hated hunter fights? Well, now there's a 1v3 of that. Or there would be if their AI was better. The way I like to handle this is to run past the hunters to Dark Beast Parl's entrance, then you can sneak up behind this one for a free charge attack. After that, you can run back to the lantern and, well, let's just say these hunters aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. It is worth noting the spear one has a cannon and that would hurt, so be careful, but with some good spacing, he falls. Back to Dark Beast, I have a +9 saw, which is far and away more than enough to handle him. I mean, do I really need to tell you how to beat this boss, because honestly, I have no idea what his moves are, and here too, he doesn't get a chance to show me. However, the reason I wanted to fight him at all was because he gives the Spark Hunter badge, which will let me buy bolt paper for way too much money. Moving right along to the one Reborn, he shouldn't be an issue, but I kinda got my shit rocked by him a few times. It wasn't even anything impressive, it was just me walking into his attacks and dying. The fight should play out similar to Dark Beast Parl, where you take out one leg at a time, and when you've circled around the boss, your beast blood meter is basically full and you're hitting like a freight train. When I do find the right opening, and by that I mean I stun him once, the fight is basically over. The lecture hall, a place of higher learning. There is probably some good stuff here, but honestly, like real school, I bounce as soon as I arrive. Well, that isn't completely true. Patches here has a gift for me. The second level of the anti-clockwise metamorphosis. Okay, now I leave. On to the Nightmare of Mensis. I hate this place. At this point in the run, there really isn't anything left to do except run by everything. So that's exactly what I do. Hello, Mikolash, you're looking particularly insane today. So here's the deal with this fight. In phase 1, he can only use the Augur of Ebrietas and punch. I mean, that's it. It's those two things. Meaning, the strategy is hit him, then walk to the right. Pretty easy. In phase 2, he gets a Call Beyond, which is far more dangerous. Now, I am confident in my ability to beat him normally, but Mikolash doesn't deserve that, so we are cheesing him, and wait, where did he go? So, I've never seen him do this before, but he kinda just disappeared. What he's supposed to do is constantly re-teleport to the same location. I'm not sure what caused this, but I ran around a bit and eventually chased him back to his little arena, and this time the cheese worked correctly. With him down, I can drop the brain of Mensis and get the Blood Rock. Huh, could have sworn there was a hunter here. I hate this game. Finally, I have a +10 Saw Cleaver. I also go ahead and make my pistol a +9 because why not? I want a paternity test. It's time to climb the clock tower and enter the upper cathedral ward, but this place kinda sucks. There are brain suckers everywhere and a few werewolves, but doors and Soulsborne jank are my best friend. I also tried to use the Shaman Bone Blade to make them fight each other, but it didn't work for me. Anyway, the primary reason I went there was to pick up the Cosmic Eye Watcher badge, which will allow me to buy Beast Blood pellets for insight. It's still technically limited by how much insight I can get per new game cycle, but I bet there won't be any bosses so hard that I end up using all of them, right? Speaking of impossibly hard bosses, next up is the Celestial Emissary. I actually did die a couple times here, I know, I need to get good. Those deaths were mostly from not knowing the timings of his swings and launching myself into them for that sweet dodge damage. But it is a pretty unremarkable boss and goes down in a couple of tries. Ebrietas, on the other hand, is a different story. Allow me to give you a flowchart of this boss. Boss starts charge. I die. That's it, that's the whole thing. For anyone struggling with this fight, 8 years after the game came out, you can't actually survive the charge if you don't dodge. For the flying charge in phase 2, run directly backwards and hope there's enough space in the arena for you to get away. Her head is her weak point, so the goal is to just bait her face slam then get a charge attack off. I was attempting this boss for a while and had several one-hit situations, so I got a little nervous, but then I remembered, have gun. After all these bosses being defeated by my pistol, I can't wait to do the actual gun-only run. Also, 28,000 blood echoes? That's it? That's a ripoff. That's like 3 papers at this point. Since my weapons are basically as strong as I can get them sans any blood gems, it doesn't really matter what boss I do next, so it's back to Castle Cainhurst to fight Angry Santa Claus. Tips for this boss? That's easy. Hit him twice and then dodge forward and to the left. That's it. That's the entirety of phase 1. When he starts for phase 2, you can get behind him for a free backstab, unless of course he literally backs himself into a corner. Well played, Grandpa. Well played. Anyway, that backstab is kind of a necessity. Sure, it's free damage, but more importantly, it stops him from buffing. Now, I don't know if he gets any increase in damage, but what it does give him is the ability to curve your bullets, because that's fair. Other than that, just blast the sword right as he places it, and he's pretty easy to parry, or you can just bait the jump attacks and get a backstab off. I didn't actually mean to end the fight with my pistol, but if it works. Just a little side note, I love how this game actually handles blood splatter and didn't put it on the part of my face that was covered. 10 out of 10 game, would buy again. Alright, time to go to every physicist's dreams, the final frontier, I mean the Nightmare Frontier. I've never really been a huge fan of this place. I think it's because it feels sort of samey, like I have a hard time navigating because it's all gray and rocks without any real distinguishing landmarks. Thankfully, it's not a particularly large area, so it goes by quickly. Maybe I was meant to come here much sooner. Okay, maybe not. The boss of this area is the Amygdala, a big walnut-headed eldritch horror monster. Her weak spot is, unsurprisingly, her head, and it might look slightly out of reach, but the transformed light attack of the Saw Cleaver is just enough to clip her while she's standing there. I tried attacking her legs to build up my meter and bait a jump so I could get big damage in, but then she decided to just never jump and I wasted my time. It took me a few tries and I was slowly getting impatient, so I did what I always do in these situations. Whipped out the Bone Marrow Ash and shot her in the face. That strategy probably isn't going to work in any fights after this, so I might as well use it now. Also, I look forward to all the comments that are going to tell me her head actually resembles an almond, not a walnut. There's only 3 more bosses in the main game, so I think it's finally time for the DLC. How did you miss? Why can't I have that kind of spacing literally any other time? So do y'all remember at the beginning of the video when I said I've only done the DLC once before? Yeah, I am terrified of this. 4 out of the 5 bosses are difficult in a normal run, and for Blood Level 4, even the 5th boss can be deadly. Put it more into perspective, it has taken me about 9 hours to get to this point in the run. The DLC took me 20 hours by itself. To say it's a spike in difficulty might be a bit of an understatement. Speaking of difficulty, the first boss up is Ludwig. I wish I had tips for you here, but honestly the fight is frantic and fast paced, so the only thing I can say is don't die. To be fair, that is kind of the point for it to be intense and in your face, but that doesn't make it any easier. Don't get me wrong, I actually really like the fight, but watching back what I did, I realized how much of it was fighting on instinct and not strategy. Which might sound a little silly because it's a game and not an actual life or death situation, but what I mean was I wasn't looking for any specific attack to punish, I was just going in on him whenever I had the chance. That being said, this fight was still a frantic pain in the ass. It got so bad at some point I went and farmed some high level blood gems hoping the little extra damage would help. Did it? Honestly, I have no idea. The worst part was at this point I had only seen phase 2 like 4 times across the multiple hours of attempts, so I didn't actually feel like I was getting any closer to succeeding. So here's what is most likely to happen when you try this fight. Because of Ludwig's massive health pool, your Beast Blood pellet will probably run out before going into phase 2, meaning your damage gets reset down to wet noodle levels of pain. In theory, that shouldn't be a huge issue as long as you know how to handle phase 2. but I didn't. However, on my winning attempt, I got really lucky. Ludwig charged me and ended up being in a corner only to do his water attack not really aimed at me. This let me get a ton of free damage quickly and completely fill my meter for phase 2. Of course, I'm in an immense amount of danger with a full beast meter, but luckily he did the easy to dodge thrust, followed up with the 3 overhead slam attacks, which I'm able to convert into a stagger for good damage. Then to top it off, he goes for the overhead AoE attack, which basically seals his fate. Aside from him doing literally nothing, this is probably the best string of attacks he could do. The downside being, I don't really feel like I learned phase 2 at all, but I mean, he's dead, so I guess that's all that matters. Also, he only gave me 34,000 blood echoes. That's not even 4 fire papers. This game's prices are horribly balanced. Thank you for demonstrating why Ludwig's Holy Blade is the superior weapon. So I completely forgot I actually have to go get the pendant from Lawrence before progressing, which is definitely there to make sure you see the boss and know it exists. But it's just a cleric beast on fire, how hard could it really be? Buddy, are you okay? He's doing fine. Okay, it's time for the living failures, and my first attempt went not so great, but that's okay, it's a learning experience. And do you know what I did learn? That I hate the living failures. That's it, that's all I've learned. Their attacks all stretch further than you think they would, or maybe that's just a large amount of copium I inhaled to get myself through this. It's not that the boss is particularly hard, it's just a combination of the large health pool, the fact that there's 4 of them, and the weird hitboxes. But there is a fun little strategy involving punching the poor medical project outside the boss arena. Basically, pop a beast blood pellet, then use the unarmed strong attack to build the meter to about 75%. You could go all the way up for more damage, but it's also important to know how much time you took to actually raise the meter. Anyway, with that, the only real threat is the first failure because you have to down him normally. Once you've done so, head over to this area and you can kill this failure basically as fast as he can stand up. Now, the only real danger is if they start throwing magic at you, but it's pretty easy to avoid as long as you're paying attention. Hopefully when they summon the meteors, a couple will be in the safe zone and you have plenty of time to get free damage in. I actually had really bad RNG for when my pellet ran out and where they were during the meteor shower, but you can just run around in big circles until they do it again. Eventually they go down. I thought maybe the DLC wasn't going to be as bad as I originally figured. That was until...
A corpse should be left well alone.
Lady Maria. Oh my cause. I don't even know how to explain this fight. It is simultaneously one of the hardest and yet easiest fights I've ever had to do. She hits really hard, has 3 phases of increasing difficulty, is fairly agile, and has 2 different movesets to pull from. Sounds tough, right? And she is, but she can fall to the infallible strategy of moving to the right. Almost every single one of her attacks can be strafed this way. Almost. This stupid 2-handed overhead attack cannot be sidestepped by walking. Now, in phase 1, it's actually possible to survive it, not that I recommend just being hit by it, but you can. Phase 2 and 3, however, the extra blood and fire damage will kill you. And it's designed to roll catch, so if you react too quickly, you just die. To be fair, her charge attacks can't be sidestepped either, but those are really slow, so long as you know which one she's doing, it's not hard to avoid. The strategy I ended up doing was to walk to her side to avoid her attacks, then try to walk back in front of her, that way she wouldn't dash away as quickly. She can be staggered, so you just have to keep up the pressure. Phase 2 and 3 are more or less the same, but if you have to dodge, the timing becomes a lot more strict because of the trailing fire. It's also worth noting that she takes very little damage from bullets at this point, but when it's a last hit situation, fire away. After nearly 4 hours, she goes down for a whopping 39,000 blood echoes. Come on, game! Yeah, I'm not above this. Oh, how the turntables. Also, Simon, I hope you're okay over there. Why work hard when you can work smart? So the next boss is the Orphan of Cause, and I already know that he's going to give me a lot of trouble, so I decided to farm the Winter Lanterns nearby for some blood gems. Ultimately, what I had hoped for were 6 gems, all with large attack up bonuses, then 3 with beast down damage and 3 with kin down damage. Then I would just swap them out for whatever boss I was fighting. Unfortunately, I didn't end up getting all the kin down ones, but that's fine. Weapon durability down isn't so bad either. Okay, it's finally time for the Orphan. I hate this fight. It took me several hours, spanning several days to complete it, and even then I got extremely lucky with phase 2. Phase 1 is actually kind of easy once you can distinguish all of his attacks. The problem is living long enough to learn how to do that. The single best thing he can do is his jumping attack. You can literally just walk under it and get a free backstab. At this point, Viscerals do fuck all, so it's usually better to go for a second charge attack for much more damage. The only drawback is it leaves you close to the boss and with less stamina. The second best thing he can do is this delayed charge drag thing, just dodge through it and to the left and do 1 transform attack. Honestly, that's kind of it. If you master these two things, Phase 1 is easy. Might be a bit slow, but it's predictable. However, it's better to have a high Beast Blood meter for when he goes into Phase 2 because you want that to be over as fast as possible. As such, here are some other attacks that you can safely retaliate against. This left to right, then right to left attack. Avoid the first one by walking back, then dodge through the second one for a transform attack. His big sweep. Parry it during the first one, then dash in for either a transform or a visceral. Keep in mind if you miss the parry and don't space properly, you'll die. This rampage combo. It starts with a roar, and when you hear it, dodge back and wait for a fraction of a second for the parry, visceral or transform attack. And you actually won't die from this if you mess it up, assuming you didn't get hit while dodging. The big overhead slam. Fire when his knee is at the height of its movement. If you miss this one, you absolutely will die. Follow up with either a visceral or a charge attack for damage. When he goes into Phase 2, if you avoid the initial explosion, you can actually position yourself right behind him for a backstab. Just wait a tiny bit after his head stops moving and start to charge the attack. On my successful attempt, I actually got super lucky with how late he went into Phase 2. Honestly, if I had successfully parried his rampage, I might have been able to end it right then. Either way, I actually missed the transition backstab. So what's the strategy for Phase 2, you ask? Yeah, I don't know. When he summons lightning, you can definitely just stand there and attack him, but it's best to get as much distance as you can from him. That way you only have to deal with dodging the lightning and not both it and him. The best attack he can do here is once again a jumping attack. Simply walk backwards and count out 3 slams, then immediately walk forwards and under him and start charging your attack. Optimistically, you land the backstab and can follow up with a second much stronger attack. Unfortunately, that's all I know. I have memories of parrying him in Phase 2 when he does a little side-to-side rampage, and I remember there being a couple of chances to safely hit him at least once, but I didn't really get to try that out here. I only got to Phase 2 a handful of times, and I don't feel like I learned anything because of how lucky I was on this attempt. To anyone out there that wants to try BL4, good luck because the Orphan here is not an easy fight. Speaking of, it's time for Lawrence. Statistically for me, Orphan was still harder, but that doesn't mean this fight is easy. There is actually a cheese you can do where he will just loop one attack repeatedly, but it doesn't really feel fair. I mean, you can make a claim that I cheesed Mikolash and sort of did for the Living Failures, but this is definitely AI manipulation and it kinda takes the fun out of the challenge for me. But I wouldn't blame anyone for doing this. Anyway, so what's my actual strategy for Lawrence? Good question. I'll let you know when I figure it out. I fought him for hours, but don't really feel like I learned anything, and at some point I started seeing attacks I didn't even know he had, like this little get off me push. I don't think I've ever seen him do that before. To make it worse, he's sort of the same thing as Ludwig, where it's so difficult to get through Phase 1, you hardly have a chance to practice Phase 2. The only tip I can give is when the fight starts, run past him to his left and do 1 light attack followed by 3 transformed attacks aimed at his ankle. If you manage to land all 4 of them, it'll break and you can get a little extra damage in. If your spacing is off, you'll get hit by the explosion, but it won't kill you. Other than that, there's no real option but to get good and hope you can break his limbs in quick succession to quickly build up your Beast Blood meter. For Phase 2, you just gotta stick to his right arm, and if he crawl stomps around, just be patient. Dodge through his body for either of his large sweeps, and of course if he decides to just diarrhea lava everywhere, that's free damage. Orphan and Lawrence were definitely the 2 hardest fights in this whole game, but with them out of the way, it's time to take on something easier. So back in the Nightmare of Mensis, I take on Murgo. Now, I've never struggled with this boss, and this run was no exception. I will admit it got a little dicey when the Nightmare phase started, but the amazing strategy of run giant circles around the boss arena didn't fail me this time either. I also went with trying to poison the boss because for some reason the floating set of clothes has a low poison resistance. Technically it made a difference because, well, damage is damage, and it ended the fight faster, but really it wasn't necessary and Murgo goes down on the first try. Now I just have to wait for this small child to perish. Man, this game is dark, like really dark. Back in the Hunter's Dream, I definitely remember to consume the 3 umbilical cords and have never forgotten to do that before. Okay, so Gehrman, he's actually a pretty fun fight. Sure, he's got some instant KOs, but overall, fun way to end the run. During his scythe form, the main attack I'm looking to bait is this slow wind up here. If he does the short one, immediately fire to parry the second hit. If he does the long charge, fire immediately after he swings the first time. In both cases, you can survive the second hit, albeit barely. If you do trade, it's better to do the visceral to get your health back, but if you don't, go for the charge attack for extra damage. Aside from that, just dodge everything else he does, particularly the pull attack because that is instant death. However, if you dodge back, fire your gun as he's likely to go for a second attack and it opens up a riposte, or you'll knock him out of attacking. For his second form, yeah, I got nothing. There is a long chain of attacks he can do, and if you recognize it early, it's pretty parryable, but honestly, I found more success in just dodging to his side and hitting him as many times as I could. The problems start when he buffs because he no longer staggers to regular light attacks. Buffed Scythe form is the same as before, except he has an added wind attack, and if any of you figure out how to 100% consistently dodge this, please let me know. Buffed short form is, well, a pain in the ass, honestly. Like I said, I didn't learn any good consistent openings, and since he no longer flinches, you can't just swing for the fences, but eventually he falls and that just leaves the moon presence. What are the strategies here? I don't know. Even at blood level 4, this boss poses basically zero threat. None of his attacks one-shot me, and I'm not completely sure if he even has an attack that can. Maybe the big jump, but that's super easy to avoid, so I don't know. It also has this dumb reduce your health to 1 HP attack, but there's no follow-ups. Like, it does it, then it just stands there, menacingly, but ultimately doing nothing. It definitely feels like something is missing from this because it's literally just free damage. You just run up to the boss and get all your health back through the rally system while destroying its health bar. Even though I'm complaining about it, I actually like this final boss because it's a secret final boss. First-time players will get the normal ending about Gehrman, then see this thing and wonder how to fight it. It's basically how Elden Beast should have gone, and I don't know why they rolled back on that. Anyway, the moon presence falls on the first try, and I have beaten Bloodborne at blood level 4. Once again, a huge thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget you can click my link in the description below to get some amazing bonuses in-game like vehicles, boosters, and more for free when you register on PC. War Thunder really is a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you all on the battlefield. And an extra special thanks to my patrons. Stay beautiful, y'all. If you made it this far, please consider giving a like and subscribing. It helps the channel out way more than you know. And if you enjoyed this video, why not check out my other level 1 run where I beat Elden Ring as Ichigo Kurosaki at, well, level 1. But until next time, my friends, don't you dare go hollow.
Oh, good hunter.